Over the next few minutes, we're going to be going to have a little look at what's been making the headlines this morning across the papers. And delighted to say our special guest this morning is The Guardian's Jonathan Liew, who joins us right now. Jonathan, absolutely brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. Did you enjoy the World Cup?
It was all right, wasn't it? I mean, I was out there for most of it until the quarterfinals, and then came home and watched the final at home, which was a pretty good game by all accounts.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, was it? We're going to start actually with Lionel Messi, who of course starred in the final, and all talk now about his Paris Saint-Germain contract. I mean, what's your understanding? I mean, it's been reported in Le Parisien, I believe, hasn't it, this morning?
Yeah, Le Parisien reporting that there have been talks ongoing for a few months between the Messi camp and the PSG camp, and that they feel that a deal is pretty close to being signed when Messi comes back from his well-earned holiday. That they're going to thrash out the details, but that Messi will be staying for next season at least, 2023-24, and sort of recreating that partnership with that trio with Mbappe and Neymar, and I guess try to win that final Champions League trophy.
And there's likely to be a few other clubs interested in Messi, of course, after those performances in Qatar. You heard anything with regards to that?
Yeah, I mean, there were talks with Inter Miami. I mean, he met David Beckham, who's obviously one of the shareholders in that club, and kind of listen to what he had to say. I think there was also obviously some contact with Barcelona, who would love to have him back. But there is also, I think, a little bit of bad feeling between Messi and the current Barcelona setup, and certain people at the club who were involved in I guess the decisions that forced him to leave, which he really didn't want to do. Remember, it was an incredibly tearful exit, and although I mean it would be a kind of romantic ending for him to finish his career at the Camp Nou, there's still quite a few obstacles to that, and I think the main thing is that he's happy in Paris and his family are happy there, and I think that's mainly what he's going to base his decision on.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you're probably right there. There's nothing more he can achieve at Barcelona, is there? Let's talk about Messi's World Cup winning teammate, though, Emiliano Martinez. I mean, his antics following the win have been a little bit questionable, but there's a lot of talk about clubs circling him as well.
That's right. I mean, there's his agent, Gonzalo Goni, I think his name is, has been essentially touting him around. There is obviously a huge amount of interest in Emi Martinez, given, well, not just his antics, but some of the saves he made under huge pressure. Gustavo Goni, saying that he's a great goalkeeper, the best in the world, which I think is exactly the sort of hype you want from an agent. One of the names being talked about actually is Bayern Munich, which you may have seen. Manuel Neuer, he injured his leg skiing and is out for the rest of the season, and so Bayern Munich are in need of a new keeper. They've been linked to a few names. Jan Sommer is another one, but now linked with Emi Martinez, and who knows really? I mean, Villa will probably demand pretty high fee to part company with him.
Yeah, I'm sure Neuer was popular when he returned back after his skiing incident and out for the season. But, I mean, it's always a worry, isn't it, when you're a club like, you think about Aston Villa, and I guess Brighton will be thinking the same about McAllister, when these guys that have great World Cups and all of a sudden the spotlight is on them. It's tough for clubs, isn't it? You've got to sort of then battle to keep hold of your players if they've performed in a major tournament like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a realism there as well. I mean, I was reading an interview with Mark Noble in The Guardian yesterday, and he said, look, if a big club comes in for Declan Rice and they pay the money, there's nothing we can do about it. And I think if you're a mid-table club like Brighton with McAllister or Villa with Martinez, there's an accommodation with the reality that there is a price, and as long as you hit that price and then you have to do business. And I think the fact that Martinez has had such a great World Cup might well inflate that fee, inflate the interest in him. And it might be that it's not the worst thing if it leads to them getting a bigger fee for a player they were reconciled to leaving anyway.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're moving on to the Sun now, Jonathan, if that's okay. It's behind me here. The headline is "Parties Over," and it's with regards to Guardiola and Erling Haaland. Lovely picture there, actually, of them training there in a silhouette. And the Norway international, one of the few Manchester City players who wasn't in Qatar, which I guess is ominous for everyone else, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, City have lost so many players to the World Cup. I think 16, which is pretty much everyone in their first team squad, apart from Haaland and Riyad Mahrez. And for Guardiola, a coach who prizes control, who prizes kind of the micromanagement of his players, who cherishes the time on the training pitch, having this whole month without the bulk of his squad, it's a bit like, I don't know, it's a bit like letting someone borrow your car for a month. You come back and it's the same car, obviously, but the mirrors have been adjusted and the seats slightly different, and the radio presets have all been changed. And I think he probably finds this whole scenario quite discomforting. He talked quite a lot about, I have no idea what's going to happen. It's never happened in my career before. You can sense that kind of discomfort in him.
And we can welcome in another guest here, Jonathan. That's all right. Our broadcaster Nabeed Haroon has joined us. Great to see you, Nabeed. Thanks so much for coming on as well. We're just talking at the moment about City and, of course, big game against Liverpool tonight. City, as Jonathan was just saying, have had a boatload of players in Qatar. Liverpool have had 7. So what do you think? I mean, does that give Liverpool a bit of an edge that they haven't had? I think it's 16 players City have had out there in Qatar.
I think also no club side has played more minutes in total in Qatar than City. So I think there's that you could say there's an edge, but my theory since way before the World Cup was that I think a lot of the teams that had the most players at the World Cup will benefit the most, because I think they're just sort of going to come back into the Premier League, come back into full flow. I think the other teams who've sort of needed a lot of pre-season games or have players that have not been playing will take a bit more time to settle in. So although Pep Guardiola is very concerned about what might happen, I think he's more concerned because it's never happened to have a World Cup in the middle of a season. Whereas I think if it works out the way a lot of people seem to believe it may do, then I think City might actually end up with an advantage rather than be disadvantaged.
Fascinating to see, won't it, how those players sort of come back. I mean, Jonathan, can you understand why Guardiola has a few concerns about having so many players away at the World Cup? 16 of them is basically his whole squad, isn't it? Like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, physically, I guess it won't be so much of an issue, given that the Portuguese players and the English players and the Brazilian players who basically form, so much of his side. They all went out in the quarterfinals. They didn't go all the way. I think it was only Alvarez who went all the way. So physically, they'll have a bit of a rest. I guess it's where they're at emotionally. It would have been a huge come down, like a crushing defeats for England and Portugal in the quarterfinals. And those players are probably, going to take a bit of time to process their emotions and I guess click back into the routine of club football. That's as much going to be the issue for City in the next few weeks as any kind of residual fatigue they may have got from playing in Qatar.
Yeah, I like to say that the coming weeks is going to be really interesting to see how many World Cup players maybe pick up niggles and so on. We'll have to wait and see how they adjust. Back to Messi, though, guys, and another story here in The Sun, which the headline is "New Bank Goat." Quite clever, I suppose. Goat replacing the word note. And this story is all about the fact that Argentina are apparently considering putting Messi's face on one of their banknotes. I mean, this is something you've seen over the years with politicians and kings and queens. Nabeed, what's your thoughts? I mean, he's won everything in football, and now Messi could be on a banknote in Argentina.
I mean, if the pictures in Argentina are anything to go by, I think the people of Argentina would love to see Messi on a banknote. So, he's completed football more or less. So this might be sort of the icing on top of the cake. I don't know how much Messi would be bothered about this. But if I'm him, I'd be absolutely delighted to have my own face on notes. Probably says more about me than him. But it's absolutely incredible.
You never know, Nabeed. It might happen. Keep believing, mate. Keep believing. Jonathan, I mean, footballers on banknotes, is it something that you could see taking off? Can you see it happening with an English player, maybe? Who would you like to see on a banknote?
I'd love to see Gaza on a banknote, but specifically the photograph of Gaza where Vinnie Jones is grabbing him in the private. I think that would speak to us as a nation, and I think that'd be a collector's item as well.
Iconic picture. That was Gaza was playing for Newcastle back then in the 80s, wasn't it? Nabeed, what about you? Who do you like to see on a banknote? Other than yourself, who gets your vote?
I don't actually want to see myself on a banknote. If it was an England player, probably Michael Owen. I think that's kind of like when I fell in love with football. I think he's a bit of a forgotten man when it comes to when people are thinking about the best players that have played for England. So maybe Michael Owen. I feel like not a lot of people like that shot, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, maybe you could... I'll tell you what we're going to do. We want people at home to get involved with this as well, using the hashtag GMSF, to say which sports personality would you most like to see on a banknote. Slightly worried by some of the responses we might get to this one, but we'll wait and see. Raheem Sterling has been suggested. Very clever. Gents, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to see both of you. Jonathan, Nabeed, have a fantastic Christmas, and we'll speak to you both soon. A fantastic weekend as well. And enjoy the return of the Premier League, gents, most importantly.